Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. Thank you for tuning in to iTunes, Google Play, and on Facebook, and also, of course, watching us each week wherever you are around the world. We're now into 15 countries, and thank you for your support of that, for tuning in on YouTube to watch us and keep up with us. A man who is known worldwide. We talked about not just greatness in sports, but innovators in sports. He is all of that. He is Wayne Lukas, the Hall of Fame trainer, and he joins us now. Wayne, great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you, Kenny. I'm excited to be here today.
Well, I was talking earlier, we first met in 1980. I know you won't remember probably, but I do vividly. I was just covering the sport, and I love the way that you would use basketball analogies with me to help me learn more about horse racing. And you've done that with many people, not just in media, but clients and all over the years.
You know, Kenny, once you're a coach, you can't help yourself. You keep going back to your roots, and so many similarities in training a horse and dealing with athletes that it has been a great help to me, and I think it helps a lot of people to explain the sport too.
I say that you would have been one, and you were the freshman basketball coach at the University of Wisconsin.
Right, that's correct.
I always thought that you two would have been like the Krzyzewski if you'd have stayed in it, because like you just said, I believe that there is a correlation with a coach, a manager, or a trainer in terms of organization and recognizing athletic ability that kind of transcends any sport.
You know, I was on the staff with Johnny Orr, who eventually ended up at Iowa State and coached at Michigan also. We were on the same staff, and he used to tell me, he used to say, Coach, go ahead and organize the practice. And I would always organize the practice because I got to be such a detailed person that, and he, of course, used to coach by the seat of his pants, so to speak. And so he'd always say, organize this thing and get it set up, and I'll take it from there. So we got along great, and our friendship was very special all the years that he coached at Iowa State and, of course, Michigan.
How do you go from being a basketball coach then to becoming one of the great quarter horse trainers to make it to their Hall of Fame and then eventually thoroughbred training, Wayne?
Well, it was the other way around. I was running horses and training horses, and I never really thought that I could make a living training horses early on. When I'm talking about in my teens, I always thought that it was going to be a hobby type thing and something that I enjoyed immensely. But I never really thought that I could make it. And I thought that my secondary love would have been sports and coaching. So I thought the coaching would take over and carry me, and I could use the horses as a secondary profession or hobby. And all of a sudden, the horses got to doing very, very well, and I found out that was my true love, and that's where I belonged.
You got a great friendship still with Bobby Knight after all these years, I believe.
Because Bobby, through my coaching background and everything, we related to each other, and I admired him so many ways and so many things. Didn't always agree with everything he did, but we were really close friends, and still are very close friends to this day. And
see, you could coach him up a little bit more on media dealing over the years, and he would have been loved by everybody.
He's loved by a lot of people, but I had him at the Derby a couple times, Kenny, and we did some of those media sessions in the morning after training, and he stepped in, and I thought we were all going to get in trouble. But he's Bobby, and he's never going to change, and God love him. He's one of the greatest of all time.
Yes, he is. As are you. Wayne Lukas is with us here on the Horse Racing Show. I was talking about innovators early on, Wayne, and earlier on in the show, and I think you're one of them. You were the first guy that I can remember that recognized, especially with air travel, you could put your horses all over the place. You didn't have to just be based at Santa Anita and occasionally make it to New York or Kentucky or Florida or Louisiana.
Well, here's the thing that happened there. I got to thinking about it, that if I was going to be successful, I had to make my clients successful. And obviously, it's just like in athletics. Not everybody can play at the top level. So I'm sitting there with a number of horses, and the tradition was that you just took care of what you had sitting in front of you. But I got to thinking about it, and I thought that probably the best thing to do would put a horse where it would be very competitive. And obviously, certain racetracks are less in competition than some of the others. So not every horse is going to fit Santa Anita or Belmont Park or Saratoga and so forth. So I thought about it a little bit, and I thought, well, some of these will fit, at Monmouth Park and different Ellis Park and different places around the country. And so we started putting them on airplanes when they looked like they would fit. And next thing you know, a lot of good things happened and a lot of records fell.
Records that some still stand today, amazing 4 decades or so later. You look at the record book and you still see Wayne Lukas popping up all over the place. And the influence you've had on other trainers. We talk about coaching trees. You got a pretty impressive training tree out there of guys like Todd Pletcher and the likes of Dallas Stewart that have gone on.
Well, the thing about it is, that's going back to what we said earlier, once a coach, always a coach. The thing that I found that when I got involved heavily in the thoroughbred racing is that nobody was teaching. Nobody really wanted, it's so competitive and the money is so big, and in that competitive arena, nobody really wanted to share very much of the knowledge. And so we come along, and I thought, well, if I'm going to do this at a big scale with a lot of horses, I've got to have some assistants. And yet, if you have assistants, I thought they better, drink the Kool-Aid and feel that they are going to do it your way and in your system. And so we taught all of them as much as we could and shared as much as we could with the knowledge that we had. And some good, really good people came out of that whole run there from the 80s and the 90s, Kenny.
Incredible bunch that you've turned out. I'll miss names. I mentioned Todd and Dallas. I know I'll mention.
Oh my gosh! You go down the line. It's Kevin McLaughlin, Randy Bradshaw, Mike Maker. I mean, you mentioned Dallas and Todd. There's a whole slew of them. I think there's 11 of them right now.
I think at least that. Yeah. So I mean, it really is amazing. Is there one thing? I know organization is key, because every one of those guys you mentioned, in talking to them over the years, like I've had the chance to do, everybody is very organized. There is a focus, and nothing's just done haphazardly. So I know they learned that from you. Is there any other thing in there, that one other thing that's so important to have a successful stable like you've had?
I think that we picked young people that had a great work ethic too. Not only were they organized, they had a great work ethic, and also I think I was involved with young men that would bounce back, that could take the adversity. Racing will bring it to your knees in a hurry, and if you don't look out, it'll really get to you and probably get you mentally to the point where you wonder if you can make it or not. But I have a quote that I always say. I always say that our successes motivate us and our failures educate us. And I think that those guys had that great work ethic and believed in the system and knew that if they stayed with it, they were going to be successful.
As far as yourself, is what continues to motivate you? 14 Triple Crowns and pretty much everything that you could ask for. Still a record, 20 Breeders' Cup wins, 25 of your horses have won Eclipse Awards, Horses of the Year.
26. Don't take one away.
What'd I do? Did I take one away? Oh, my goodness. You'll never talk to me again. What, a 15? 15, right?
No, 26. 26.
26.
Eclipse.
26 Eclipse.
Yeah, for sure.
See, you know what? That's a tribute to you. I got to keep up with your records nonstop, because there's always another one that pops up. So with all those, I mean, you keep going. I don't think you've slowed down a bit. You're still there, 4 o'clock in the morning every day?
Definitely. I tell you, I think it's a type of sport that, right now I'm so caught up in my 2-year-olds. I absolutely was talking today to the people up in New York about going up to Saratoga, and I thought that my 2-year-old crop is excellent. But you just keep motivated by waking up every day and thinking maybe that you got one more good one, one more Derby, one more Breeders' Cup left in you. And it's a tremendous motivation. Remember this, Kenny, when you're passionate about anything in life, whether it be training horses or anything else, when you're passionate, you eliminate all of the excuses. Right there. That tells it. You don't care if you're tired, you miss a meal, you have to stay up all night, you have to drive. When you're passionate, you eliminate all the excuses. And those people that are successful to come up under me, or I think myself, we still have that passion.
Well, you certainly do. We're talking with the great trainer, Dwayne Lukas. 26 Eclipse Award-winning horses he has turned out, with probably more to come, talking about those 2-year-olds. And another thing I think you were ahead of the game on, Wayne, is that the emphasis you put on 3-year-olds and on, the Triple Crown races. Not that the others weren't trying to win them, but you came in mass with horses, and it was a big deal to be at the Derby, and everybody wanted to see Wayne Lukas show up the Derby. Now, as we see guys like Baffert and Pletcher and a few others that have followed in that.
Well, the first thing I recognized when I came over from the quarter horse game to thoroughbreds is that the Derby and the Triple Crown races were special. Now, I thought right away, if I'm going to succeed and going to keep my clientele really happy, this is where they want to be. So we, right away, started putting the emphasis on those 2-year-olds late in their year, wondering if we could find them when they turned 3, one that turned 3 that would be capable of pulling one of those races off. We recognized right away that it was very important that you could. It's kind of like Notre Dame. Notre Dame can lose to Indiana, but if Notre Dame can beat USC, that makes their season.
Right. Exactly. That's well put, because that's still it. America watches the Triple Crown. Horse racing people will know what's going to happen this summer. To a lot of Americans out there, and you were, again, one of the first guys that I ever talked to that got this. In Peoria, they're probably not going to pay a whole lot of attention to the Travers or the Haskell. They're probably not, or they're going to watch maybe the Breeders' Cup, but that Triple Crown race is still the races that the vast majority of people watch. And, I mean, it's evident by the fact that's who they tune into to watch on TV.
Well, 145, 6 years of tradition is what it's all about. This is the thing that makes the people tune in. I notice that whenever I get on an airplane or anything, or traveling, or I run into even having dinner with strangers sometime, they'll say, "And what do you do?" And I say, "Well, I train horses. I train race horses." And they say, "Oh, do you go to the Derby?" I say, "Yeah, I go every year." And then there's this pause, and they say, "Did you ever have a horse in the Derby?" And I said, "Yes, I've had quite a few of them in the Derby." "Oh my gosh, did you ever win it?" And you say, "Yes, 4 times." They drop their fork. It's amazing the effect it has on them.
It really is. It is. And let me ask you, because you always have an opinion, you're articulate, and you're astute in what's going on. With all the things that have happened in this Triple Crown year, we've seen some things, and you've seen a lot of things. This is maybe the strangest Triple Crown year that we're going to see in a while.
Well, the controversy brought, if you're going to look at it a little bit of positive, what could have come out of it positive? The Derby itself brought a lot of attention and held the attention of the American public, and by that I mean the non-racing hardcore fan held their attention for a couple of weeks afterwards. I think that what was probably lost in the Derby, Kenny, is that the stewards' lack of explanation right after it, and maybe even you and your colleagues trying to explain it, and that's not your job necessarily on TV. But people that are just lay people watching the Derby maybe for the first time could not understand why Country House out on the outside there eventually ended up winning when it wasn't bothered by the eventual winner. they couldn't. They said, well, why was that horse the winner? He didn't get bothered. But there was a lot of action going on the inside, along with War of Will and that group there. So it was difficult for the layperson to understand that, and I tried to explain it to people. People said to me, "What do you think?" and so forth. But that probably was what confused most people.
Yeah, I mean, it's like with anything else, and the people have asked me that they'll cite the pass interference that wasn't called in the Saints game in the NFC
Right.
Championship. I say, look, sometimes it just gets confusing, but I do agree with you. The transparency is the key, and all we actually at NBC that day was that the stewards come on and just not to debate them or not to do a question and answer, but to just simply say, what is the rule? What is the rule that is going to take maximum security down? The horses that he interfered with. That's all. That's all anybody needed.
Sure. That and the light should have gone on right away at the quarter pole when the incident happened, not waiting for a jockey to call the objection later.
You have, Santa Anita's been based for years. It's a beautiful track. I love that track. I love the history of that track. Those San Gabriel Mountains on a beautiful, day in Southern California, I think is the prettiest backdrop in racing. With everything that's gone on out there, Wayne, your take just on the whole situation at Santa Anita this year?
Well, here, first of all, they had a change in track management. By that, the track superintendent, Dennis Moore, who has been there for years, had left for a while. And then they got the weather. They got extreme weather, a lot of rain that they normally wouldn't have gotten at that time of the year. And they probably, and my take on it, is they lost the racetrack. That the thing that I think that should have been put out there for everybody answering their questions is that our track we've lost the track, but we're going to do something about it. Instead of blaming Lasix, usage of Lasix, running the horses too often, the whip. I mean, what got out of hand is they started blaming everything but what they were standing on. And that is what had to be fixed. If that wasn't the case, we would have had this rash of injuries on all racetracks all across the country. So the surface is what really it got down to. Once they could get the handle on that surface, the whole situation would right itself. It was not Lasix and whips and frequency or 2-year-olds or whatever the other things that came into the conversation.
Talking with D. Wayne Lukas, the Hall of Fame trainer, the first person to be elected to the Quarter Horse and the Thoroughbred Hall of Fame. He had 24, I believe, world Quarter Horse champs. I hope I didn't miss that number.
You gave me one extra there.
Okay, so sorry about the eclipse with 26, but isn't it great that you've got so many that you have to keep looking them up? I really admire that. And a guy who was not one of your assistants, but you've had a big influence on. We had him on the show, and he spoke of that. He was there watching you win those World Quarter Horse Championships when he was coming up, and of course has followed your lead in a lot of ways. Is Bob Baffert. The relationship that you and Bob have, it seems to have, become. I still know you guys want to beat each other if you're racing against each other, but maybe less competitive, more friendly. Is that fair to say?
Oh, most certainly, Kenny. We're a lot of people, said that we had this great rivalry and everything, and so we went along with it, you and your colleagues, and then we'd at the end of the day we'd say, let's go to dinner at Jack Fry's tonight. But the Bob Baffert, in my opinion, is the best trainer in America, no question. Not only is he really, really know what to do with a horse, he has the ability to, I'm going to say, recruit. He has developed the ability to bring into his program some serious clientele, and that enables him to get into the sales rings and build a stable that like nobody else has. And he's done that very, very well. He's got an excellent eye for horse, and he is absolutely a good horseman. I think he's the best in the world.
You know, some people would say that about Wayne Lukas a few years back about the recruiting and bringing in guys like Eugene Klein, who owned the San Diego Chargers, and Bob and Beverly Lewis and others that you have brought into the game. And, you know, you recruited really well. You recruited really well, and the stable you built with them and other clients.
Well, the thing about it is it's a game. It's a game of numbers in a lot of ways, and you need to get those top draft choices, or you're going to not be able to compete at the level that Bob and I compete at. And so, if you can influence those people to, and it's usually large, deep-pocketed people that we're talking about here, influence so that they want to be involved in the great sport of racing, you then have to produce. That's the key. A lot of young men out there training horses have got some great clients, but they're not producing like Bob Baffert. You got to get them in. First of all, you got to convince them that this is a great sport and to get into it. But you still have to produce it. And when you get the horses, it isn't just getting the clientele to come to the table.
Do you remember when you thought, I'm making it now. I'm getting recognition now, and I'm going to be able to get clients? Because when we first met was just a few months after Codex had won the Preakness, your first major win in the thoroughbred racing scene. But at that time, some was still looking at you as that quarter horse training former basketball coach guy.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You know, it's still they still call me coach, and I haven't coached in 40 years. But the thing about it is that both Bob and I had that stigma, not a stigma, but that title of, the quarter horse guys. We're still the quarter horse guys. You'd be amazed. Bob and I were winning a major race, and somebody will say the quarter horse guys won.
Right, to this day. That's amazing.
To this day, they still, and we're proud of it. We're proud of that background and everything. I think that being in the quarter horse game has honed our eye for good horse flesh. I think that Bob's got an excellent eye, and I feel like I've gotten along very well. I think that the quarter horse game really helped us in picking out runners.
Wayne Lukas was instrumental in helping me win an Eclipse Award several years ago. I don't know if you remember the time I followed you around at the Keeneland sale, and we were observing we were observing the way you observed horses, and you talked then about here's an athlete, as you would look at if you were looking at a high school player that you were going to sign to a basketball scholarship. You treated him as an athlete.
Well, that's the thing. Pedigree is important, but you have to have that athletic-looking horse to go along with it in order to get to compete at the highest level. And I think that Bob and I both have picked out athletic horses over the year. There's a lot of guys doing it now. I don't say that we changed the game necessarily there, but I think a lot of people are getting more and more to where they're looking at the very athletic, balanced horse and hoping that when they look at the pedigree that it matches up.
As far as right now, what has been the biggest changes that you've noticed in horse racing when you came onto the scene with Codex now from like 1980 to now? Wayne, is there anything out there that has changed so much, or things that you still wish could change?
Well, I think the thing that's changed the most is that we're getting the horses are these high-priced horses. We're getting multiple ownership. We don't have many people like Bob Lewis years ago or Gene Klein, as you mentioned, that, and the other thing is you don't have the involvement with the big farms and individuals like we used to have back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. There's two or three people, very wealthy people, that will join hands and get involved with one horse. That's the first thing. The second thing is I think the internet has caused us as horse trainers a lot of headaches. I'm going to explain that. There's so many gurus out there, that self-appointed gurus that are, feeding information to different people, that the ownership, if they're really tuned in to the internet, are picking up all of this stuff that is offered out there, and a lot of it is a little bit of fluff. I don't think that it has a lot of stability as to what we're trying to do. By example, I had an owner client called me the other day, and he said, I just got my gait analysis. And I said, what? He said, I got the gait analysis. And I said, well, what did it tell you? He said that our horse that got beat yesterday shortened his stride 8 inches from the 8th pole to the wire. I said, well, hell, Billy was tired. You know, I mean, where are we going with this?
Aren't you glad you have all that help now? Aren't you glad you have all that help out there training?
Really.
Winning.
There are no how-to books in racing, in training racehorses. There really isn't. I think that we're going to get to maybe some of that, but even the great trainers, Alan Jurgens, Woody Stevens, Charlie Whittingham, there's no how-to book where anybody has really sat down and explained. My great friend Carl Nasker did probably as good a job as anybody, but there's not any really, or go on the internet. You can go on the internet and tell how to open the hood on your pickup truck, but there is nothing that really concretely explains what we're trying to do. And the problem with that is, Kenny, that every horse is so individual that you can't get a general. You can get a general pattern of what we're doing, but the great trainers get to it a little bit further, and I call that an intuitive awareness. They're aware of what that horse needs, and it's really hard to put that down on the internet or in a book.
Well, if anybody writes a book, I would suggest it would be you, Wayne Lukas.
I wrote a book, but it's all my quotes and stuff, and it's just a fun book. It doesn't say anything about how to train.
Yeah, your book is good because you've got the quotes. I mean, you're like the master of the soundbite, as we always say in TV. Say, hey, you want to get an interview? Go talk to Wayne. Especially when, I'm not even going to. I don't think it's impossible to answer. Like horses with all the ones you've had. I don't know, from Lady Secret winning colors, like Cat Thief surprising in the Breeders' Cup Classic, but Oxbow to me was kind of a special one because does Wayne still have it? And man, you pop up and you win the Preakness in 13. There you did it. I mean, there's just so many great horses you've had over the years. And I remember in 95 when you won the Triple Crown with 2 horses, Thunder Gulch and Timber Country. All of us were scampering through the history books, and it's hard to find it all the time. You know that. It's not like basketball and baseball, and you were the first guy to do that, to win a Triple Crown with 2 different horses in the same year.
I still like to win them with one. I think I'm still after it. I'm going to try it. But the Oxbow was special. It was, first of all, it was Calumet.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy to do that for Brad Kelly, who has put so much effort and money into reviving Calumet to the status it is today again. And the other thing is, it broke Sonny Fitzsimmons' record for the most Triple Crown races that day, and it established an 83-year-old man that he could still train. So that was a fun one.
You just don't slow down, and it's. I always enjoy talking with you. I think everybody in the media enjoys coming by and getting an opinion, because you don't mince words and you have an opinion. A lot of times you say, how's this horse look? Well, possibly, could be. You have laid it out many times, probably to the chagrin of some. This is what this horse looks like to me. Because everybody asks you, who do you like in this Derby? Who looks good on the track today?
Yeah, I get that. And I sometimes open my mouth and stick my foot in my mouth a little bit too, because I get too opinionated and everything, and I don't realize that you guys are going to put it all over America. But I'm getting better at being a little bit more discreet. But I still think that we have to, as trainers, we have to be accessible. The horses don't stay around, Kenny. That's one of the things. The economics of it keep us from keeping the American Pharaohs or Justifies on the racetrack, so that we get a fan base. So the only people that stay around are the jockeys for a number of years, and of course the trainers last forever. But we have to be accessible, I think, to you in order to promote the sport and give it its best image.
Well, I think so too. And you know, to me, if not that they ever asked me, but if they said, give me a marketing advice to the NTRA or one of these outfits promoting the sport, I've always contended that you've got to promote the people just why you said what you just said, because you guys are there every year. And I had so many people in other sports I cover ask me, well, what happened to Justify? What happened to American Pharoah? Why aren't they running anymore? And, you know, they don't understand the breeding business. They don't understand how much money can be made. You tell them and they go, okay, I get that. But like you say, you're going to be there. Baffert's going to be there. Pletcher's going to be there. You know, pick a jockey. They're still around. I think the human aspect is still something that horse racing needs to tap more of, where people either root for you or against you, just like they rooted for or against your friend Bobby Knight or whatever coaches out there or whatever players out there.
I agree so much, and I think that the thing about it is that the young guys coming up have to take the interview, have to be accessible. Some of them think that they're doing, you know, the right thing by, you know, keeping close to the best and not talking about their horse or their program or this horse or that horse. Hell, I think they need to open up and get involved with the media as much as they can and let the public in on as much as they can too.
Well, you've done a great job with that, and like I say, you've influenced not only trainers but many of us in the media over the years, and you're still going, and you got 2-year-olds, and you're going to Saratoga with them. So there. What else do you need? Wayne Lukas in the hunt with 2-year-olds again.
I think, you know, our freshman class this year is good. Last year I thought we were a little bit light. We had, you know, like you have in racing, a little bad luck. But this year, and again, I'm the eternal optimist you're talking to here, but I think there's a couple out there in the barn this morning that at least got me excited to the point if I don't mess them up, I think we could be involved.
Wayne, I can't thank you enough for being on. I want you to come back again. I could talk with you for 2 or 3 hours, but I know you got work to do, and I thank you for your time.
Kenny, always enjoyed talking to you. You do a beautiful job at promoting the very sport that we both love, and thank you for having me on.
All right. Thank you so much. The coach, the king, the great Hall of Fame trainer, D. Wayne Lukas here. We'll be back with more of the Horse Racing Show right after this.